I am so thrilled to greet again our wonderful Nikki. Nikki Valencia has become a dear friend, a mentor, and someone that I deeply admire. She has been through a lot and she has come to a place that I want to live in her light all the time. This place that she's shown me, this graceful place. And Nikki, thank you so much for being here.
Of course, and girl, it's ditto. It's your light too that I relish into. So yes, I got it. And thank you so
Well,
much.
it's funny how I see that the survivors who are really um, not only interested in thriving in their own lives, but they're interested in sharing how they got to the place they are today. And that to me is where we are going to change the world. So as we relish in each other's light, we want to make sure that our listeners and those who are hoping to step into more light in their lives, hoping to step forward in their healing, have an understanding of why you, Nikki, are uniquely qualified for the things that you are doing today to help others. And I think that means we have to go back in time and tell a little bit of your story from your childhood. And you get to start on that wherever you want to and say as much as you would like to give us that foundation of where you came from and how difficult your childhood and those early beginnings of your life and into your tween and teenhood actually were. And then we'll be able to relate to you in a way that helps us all go, "Ooh, I want some of that secret sauce that Nikki is doing in the programs, now." But let's go back a little bit.
Okay, that sounds good. So just so everybody's clear, life, I live life on life's terms. And when I say that, that comes from a 12-step background. And it comes from the desperation of just living and surviving. So the first part of my life, the very first time I was ever touched that I remember was a very significant event for me because once that happened, I was attentive. I'm looking around. You're coming towards me. Who are you? What are you up to? I'm judging. I'm assessing. Because when something like that happens to a 3-year-old girl, what do you do with it? Not
You
much.
have no words.
You hold the trauma, you hold the experience. There was something wrong. I couldn't identify it. I didn't have words. And even today, I don't feel we really need words other than to be descriptive. Uh, However, at that point, I'm 3 years old. I'm in a car and I have somebody to my right, somebody to my left. My mother is driving us to a location. I don't know where. We roll in. She parks and she runs in. And the moment she runs in, I'm sitting there in my diaper. I'm not even sitting, I'm standing on the front seat. And I only have a diaper on. And I don't know what's happening. Something's wrong. What's going on? Where's my mom? Mom, 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 mom. Scream inside. Where's mom? Because that's all I know. Where's mom? Where's mom? Because something's happening. I don't know what it is, but that's not okay. And she comes back and everything's okay. It's back to normal. And I'd say that repeated for me over and over and over again in several situations. I was age 6. I saw my mother get. I heard the stepfather punch her in the face and I heard the bones crack. In that second, I decided nobody's ever going to hurt somebody I love again. Again, who are you as you walk into my life after these events? I don't know that that's happening. I'm just living life. I'm actually living life as if nothing ever even happened to me. Because what else do you do as a child? By the time I get to age 20, and I go walk into the rooms of the 12-step program, I've had 10 significant abusive events. The very first one I tell you about, the time that a family member grabbed me by my arm and hit me like 40 something times with a hand of a 6'4" person, 6'2" person, and I'm an 8-year-old child, and I'm collapsed, hanging in the air because I can't fight anymore. I grew up thinking if I said something wrong, if I did something wrong, I was gonna get severely punished. So God forbid I stand in front of you and say anything that's wrong, because that means almost death to a little girl.
Yeah.
I was raped twice, 14 and 17. One is a blur because I was so out of it. It was a friend of a friend. It was a friend's friend, and I didn't think anything was gonna happen. He's gonna go have a barbecue with his girlfriend up in the mountains. Do I wanna come along? Sure. Next thing I know, I'm being raped and taken back. I'm lucky I got taken back. I can go on and on about the stories. I danced. I was a stripper on Market Street when I was 17 years old. I was brought into a brothel, what they call a massage parlor at the time. I'm 14 years old. And for a long time, I had a lot of shame about that. I no longer have any shame about it. I am the child I was trying to save. And I'm here for everyone to know what it is to be that child and to know what I experienced, not to make anybody wrong about it. However, or rather, I should say, to open our eyes to the normality of it. And when it comes to religion, we all have had our experience with that. I love that religion, all religion brings us to love, brings us to God. And that is what was in me that had me never give up. Even though I was gay, even though I'd been raped and sexually abused, even though people and I was beaten, I was stuck in a room at age 12. My mother went to go on vacation to go to Vegas. And the moment that car drove out the driveway, her abusive boyfriend looked at me and said, "Get in that effing room right now. Right now. Get in that effing room right now and don't come out." And I sat in that room and I raged and cried. And in that second, I realized that no one with authority was better than me. They were only exerting control over me that I did not like already because I had already been manipulated in that way so much
Yep.
prior to that. So that even when the cop at age 14 was taking me out of a school dance and asking me, "What are you doing outside?" and grabbing me by the arm and taking me around the bungalows for what? We don't know. My friend saved me. "What are you doing with her? Let her go." And apparently he didn't have anything to do with me officially.
Mm,
Who knows what he was going to do unofficially?
right.
And the same goes with other people I've met, politicians. I worked in the brothel. I worked in a home with a madam. She had a blacklist like crazy. And some of them were politicians. So please forgive me if my point of view about a politician or a religious leader is that of our common humanity. Up until this point, all we've done is pretend that we are the things that the Bible would want us to be, as opposed to living it. And to me, there's a distinct difference between talking about being religious and literally experiencing in one's life the banquet that is available to us. And
Yes.
it's simple. And I can be my authentic self. I don't have to pretend to be something I am not. And that takes me being willing to take a look in an area I've never looked before. And what was that?
Yeah, what was that? That first room, that 12-step room, is that first time?
That was the first. At first, I had to get the first surrender was just to live, because I learned that um, my insanity was doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. So when I walked into those rooms, all you see is don't think, don't think, don't think, don't think. Now, what I do now currently is I bring modalities together, which are the 12-step program, some of their teachings, and Eckhart Tolle. Eckhart Tolle is the master when it comes to the unobserved thinking mind. It's everything I learned in the 12-step program, and it is something that is a natural state for us to exist in. And when we step out of a thinking mind, an unobserved thinking mind, which equals us thinking we are that thought, thinking, I lived thinking I was my thoughts, I was in my head, I was fantasizing, I was daydreaming, I was focused, I was in there hours and hours and hours, all day, every day. And to keep it simple, what has become possible by stepping away from that unobserved thinking mind is there's no longer a saboteur, which, by the way, I honor and respect. I honor and respect my thinking mind and how it protected me. Because there's a lot of those experiences that I had that I could not be with. If I had to be with the full impact of all those experiences as a child, I would never have survived. It's a miracle I'm alive now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So that was in your early 20s when you said that was your first surrender was you found yourself in those rooms, 12-step program rooms.
Mhm.
And at that point, you were there because you had graduated into the things that we do in order to keep the feelings, the what you get there. So one way or another, people get there in different ways. You were there because you had crossed that into that, "This is how I'm going to survive now." My brain protected me, my all that as a child, but now I've stepped into some other way of trying to.
Now, I didn't know any of that, right? So I didn't know that my brain was I was still complaining, resisting, reacting. I've lived my whole life reacting to everything anyone you said, anybody said. Not anymore, but that butthurt feeling is what the pain body is that Eckhart talks about. It's just like a butt hurt. It's like anytime your butt hurt, you know you're reactive. you know something's going on, and that's all that we need to know. But that is how that started, and that's just living in the muck of life, in the mess of life, and that's what I got out of that program. One day at a time, step at a time, stay out of the thinking, but I didn't have that part of that. So I spent I spent years staying out of my thinking mind in the only way I could, and it still felt like survival.
Yeah.
I did well. I've done well. It wasn't until my wife passed in 2019. Before that, 3 years, 4 years before that, we were listening to Eckhart and it just clicked. And so I just continued through the whole process, so much so we both did that. I mean, we're giggling and laughing the whole week before she dies.
Mm.
And even when she's in the hospital, it doesn't occur to me that she's gonna pass anytime soon because it's only today. It's just today. We're just in today. And then it happened. And then I found myself alone and in the deepest second surrender of my life. And
Yeah.
it just it I'm grateful for what I had already under my belt. And I'm grateful that I had the teaching. For me, those teachings, they're not about Eckhart. Has nothing to do with him. I'm grateful for him, glad he listened, all that great stuff. For me, I know enough about my universe and my world, and as you are too, exploring and discovering, right? We're all exploring and discovering that. To know that love has my back definitively. No question. And as I lay there, unable to move or do anything, I'm able to watch the grief and I'm able to watch the blessing and I'm able to see that they're both freaking powerful. And they're both like, whoa, wow, this feels like, woo, okay. I don't give it any meaning. It just notice the cessation. I just breathe through it. I know I'm loving. I'm going through whatever they call that grief thing, and that she would want me to just take good care of myself because she loved me that much. And so I take that on. I roll with that.
So when your wife died and you are experiencing grief, you're experiencing the sadness, the loss, but it is almost as if you're observing your experience of your emotions. You're experiencing them, but it's an observation also. So when you came to through those, I've been talking about the stages of grief on my solo in my solo episodes lately. And the one that I just was talking about recently was anger. When you get to the anger part, did you go through that stage of grieving with because I know what came out of it was this wonderful program that you've developed called Joan of Heart. And I want to talk about that. But did you go through all of those stages that we normally typify as these are the stages of grief?
I would say that yes and no, because it's about a perspective, right? It's about your point of view, about your context.
That's why I brought up the question, like, I wonder if I had a really huge loss, like the trauma in my childhood just felt like I lost my whole, tweenhood and teenagehood, and it was a huge trauma and loss for me. And what I went through in my 20s is what I was just talking about on my solo episode. And that's when the anger came. But I didn't get Eckhart Tolle until, many years after that. And I wonder now, after doing your Joan of Heart program, and once again remembering, that the mind is not, you know, is not necessarily your friend all the time. What it's doing to be in the way of just having your senses and your feelings can sometimes be really, if I would be different, if I would not go through as much anger as I went through with the first really significant trauma.
So, what's beautiful about that? So, look, the first thing is like it's so difficult for us to accept where we are, exactly where we are. All the sabotage, all the judging and assessing, all that stuff, I still experience those things in moments, however, and they no longer have power over me. So let me give you an example. I used to walk around reactive about everything in my life because I had no idea that I was an unobserved mind. I wasn't paying attention to that. I was living in my mind. I wasn't noticing the thoughts of the mind. Prior to that, I thought I was those thoughts. I thought I was that because I grew up in it as a child, age 3, age 9, age 7, age 6, age 12, age 14, all it happening to me. It's to me, to me, to me, to me. That's our selfish, self-centered, and self-seeking aspect. But we're not really being selfish, self-centered, and self-seeking. It's just that's how we got wired in the brain. Our awareness is in here. Our awareness went to our thinking mind, the saboteur. Well, that's how we're going to distinguish it. Now, what you do in this program is you step away from that thinking saboteur mind, and all you're left with is just your beingness, which just is you and is authentic, and any thought that drops out of nowhere, and or if we're working and doing our business, we're very present. We're able to do what we're doing, and we can get it done. But prior to that, everything that happened to me, oh my God, she wants me to do this. I don't know if I can do the electrical part of it. Oh, maybe I can't maybe I don't know how to turn the video on. The distinction between the saboteur and our awareness of where our awareness is us, our attentiveness is us, period.
Right.
And if I'm absent in a daydream in my mind, I'm not present and I'm unable to manage my life because instead of being present and interacting with you, I'm in the context that the mind is making up at that very moment. Jan just asked me a question, and am I answering that question? Oh my God! And then you're being that thing that you don't want to be. Ah, I can't get into a relationship because if I get into a relationship, I'm going to end up being exactly like I am every single time. And why even bother? And I say, and
Right.
I say that it's so simple, but it's not easy. But it's that unobservance, or I'll say it like this: Eckhart calls it an unobserved mind. I say it's our attentiveness, our attention was directed into the mind, not on purpose, but it's the way it always goes. And now, as adult human beings who are capable of making a choice, we can literally say to ourselves, I'm gifting myself the gift of peace and silence from that thinking saboteur mind, because it is available. It is here, and you can do it. And that's what I love about what I do, because I had to do it. Nobody was going to get sober for me, and nobody was going to get me out of this thinking mind. Nobody could. I wanted people to. I wanted to talk about it all freaking day long, and it's so exhausting. I
Right.
was exhausted. They were exhausted. No wonder they couldn't be around. But I don't beat myself up for that stuff anymore because, some of that stuff has shifted. And I recently realized I talk loud. And I can get why I talk loud because I was a child that wasn't heard. And occasionally I'm present. I'm speaking loud. Wow. And so things naturally shift. It's a natural shift. Yeah. And you had a natural shift, right? As you became aware.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that that awareness, sometimes it sounds like it's out in the, like, oh, it's like woo woo or something like that. And it's not that at all. It's actually just becoming present to not having your mind clutter every single thing that you do or think about. So you're always in a state of, oh, I'm sorry, or I'm doing this wrong, or oh, I can't do that right, or oh, I'll never be able to understand that, or I'll never have, or da, da, it's all that instead of just being in the moment of your life that is present, that present moment. And I think people think about that, and it almost shows up like that sounds selfish or something, and it's not at all.
Oh,
It's
God.
just self-awareness. It's being in the self. It's being just in that moment. All it is just being able to be right there and present for yourself and for other people when you're working on something, when you're living your life, instead of it constantly just getting the best of you, because what we're thinking in this unobserved mind, it often is the sabotage. It is
It
the
is.
sabotage
It
of our
is.
life. It
It is.
sabotages us. And I
Yeah.
think this is a really good conversation to have, especially with those who are trauma survivors, because there is a point that comes, and I'm not saying everybody's at that point, but there's a point that comes that if you don't figure out how to not be in the trauma of your past and have it be running your present life, you really are not allowing for the space to be just in the present moment where you can have a life. It's almost as you don't have your life because it's not in the present.
You don't have your life as long as you're in your mind. And that's 99% of us. And there's nothing wrong with that. We could continue life like this, but look where it's leading us.
So when you take the program Joan of Heart and going through that, and being, reminded about how to step back into the present. You're never going to do it perfectly all day long every day, you know, and that people are at different, places in their life. And that is the road less traveled, it's the road less traveled. It's the one where most people are not traveling on that road of being present, and being present to that love has your back, or maybe somebody else would call that God, or whatever they would say, but that love is a universal thing, that it's meant to be the guide. And I know you talk about that, like, does it feel yucky or does it feel yummy? Go with the yummy. Go towards that. And I think that's a really good thing, because so much of the time I think that we've gotten away from, our actual ability to sense things in our gut, in our heart, and the mind has taken over. Everything has to be, you know, fought in the battlefield up here in your head, when really there doesn't need to be a fight at all. Just check in, feel. Does that feel right?
Yeah, and
You
yuck
know?
and yum is neutral, really. So, yuck is just the moment you feel a yuck, you're present. You're like, something's up. That's all it's doing. Oh, something like,
Yeah.
and I will feel a yum, and I have to remember, and I still do this because everyone functions at their own level of awareness. So occasionally I have to check myself on the yum, because the yum comes in and it's like, whoa, So I've learned to just ride the wave of grief and blessing. I could say ride the wave of yuck and yum. I could say ride the wave one day at a time, incrementally, right? So it's just something I've learned to do, is live one day at a time, one step at a time, without making myself wrong anymore, for having a lot of grace for the little girl who suffered so much. Yeah, and then when I notice those things about myself, I can just, I don't even feel hardly any. I don't have any more butt hurt around those things anymore. It feels more like a little mosquito in there, the saboteur going. I can hear everything it says and all that. However, it no longer has power. 90 days to the heart of the matter uh, is you. You are the heart of the matter.
Yeah. You in your own life.
Yeah, that's what you're
Yeah.
getting to. And there's freedom in that when you are willing to go, oh boy, okay, I'll look at it. I'll look and I'll see. I'm willing to walk through whatever shows up. And it doesn't have to be religious. It doesn't have to be spiritual even. I don't even, some people have said to me, well, you're enlightened. Well, to me, if this is enlightened, then everybody come on, because all enlightened is me being exactly who I've always been without the thinking. That's it.
Yeah. It's the observation. You've observed and you have that ability to observe and to have all the things there, present there and observing them instead of having everything that the mind will make you try to control everything. You can have intention. You can have intention in what you're doing and an intended result, but you're not tied to the result. And there is freedom in that.
Yeah, right. Do you realize how much less energy I waste? I waste it. Being reactive is energy. When you
Yep.
get right to it, you notice it, you're like, error. And it's like, oh, and it's like, oh, okay. And it's like, oh, okay. Do I got to clean that up over here or this over here? Yesterday, I was being reactive. It's my reactiveness is like this now. So the dishes didn't get washed last night. Okay. Just like that. So the dishes didn't get washed last night. And I walk out. Okay. So I know I'm being reactive. As minor as a reaction as that is, I still know I'm being reactive. So as I walk into my room, my niece is there. I I then realize the whole world falls into my lap. She's been wrapping presents. She's doing her part. She's all this, and I recognize, oh, there's my dang egoic. There's the identity again. Okay, so hey, Alana, come over here when you're done. Okay, please. Yeah. Okay. So, I just want you to know that I don't know what's going on right now, but I'm feeling reactive but don't take, it's not personal. So just so you see, I fixed it with you earlier. I told you I was feeling not so clear. So I don't need to figure it out right now, but something is happening and I'll just manage myself. Okay. And she's like, okay. So now I don't have to leave her in a state of, oh, because when you feel my upset, you feel it.
Yeah.
If I allow myself to be unobserved, you're not gonna hang out with me very long. You're gonna feel me, and you're gonna feel my upset. You're gonna feel it. It's gonna be in her space. Then she's gonna carry that on to somebody else. So instead of doing that with her, I tell her, "Look, Mia, I'm your blessing and your grief. If you can work with me, you're gonna be a master in everybody else." And that's what play a game like that. So I share with her, and she sees how much I've shifted for years. And so we have harmony in our house because we can speak that way to each other. We all speak to each other that way. Hey, just my identity. Now I do a little jig. I'll get a cane and I'll go on and, oh, there's the identity again. Wants to come out and mess around with everybody and cheer everybody up. So I'm going to go to my room. It's like, it's playful now.
Yeah. I'm ready to tear everybody apart and tear everything down and make complaints and be angry and mad. And instead, I notice all that and I'm going to let you know I'm having that moment. And I got my top hat on and my cane, and let's just do a little dance around it. And so they know, it's a beautiful example of how going through, like the 90 days, the program, Joan of Heart, was to again be able to observe that and to still know it's all going to come up, it's all going to happen. But now you
Yes.
have context around being able to tell somebody, look, I'm dealing with my ego and my own mind and what you're supposed to do according to my mind, and being upset about it. And so I got my top hat on and my cane. We're going to do the little dance.
And you'll do it appropriate to whoever you're with, right? You'll say it in the perfect words because presence is always available. The perfect thing always comes out.
Right.
And so, so
And
it's
everybody knows pain. Everybody knows the things that, trauma is a real thing that most people have been through some sort of major trauma. So people know pain, but what you don't want to do is live in pain and then to have everybody come in and live there with you. You would rather be able to observe pain and suffering and go, and how am I right now? And how can I stay in this place? And by trying to stay in that place, you're not in that place. I get that. But when you really can observe things that you're feeling or sensing, it really does make a shift in how your everyday life goes.
This is why I teach what I teach, because if you know better, you do better. Up until now, so Eckhart teaches a particular way. I'm teaching from the space of not having Eckhart and then having him, and having to live from age 20 to 50 something, 25 years plus without any knowledge of the mind, unobserved mind, basically. Okay? So the simplicity of this is just simply because you now know, and those one-liners are just going to I have one-liners that put you in a space instantly, and that they're intentional. And I ask you to use them intentionally. If everybody left this call and used, everyone functions at their own level of awareness whenever somebody's in front of you, and then you're noticing your reactiveness because you too are, and everyone functions, so you want to give yourself grace. And no make wrong. That's another one. You could live a whole different life just with those two things.
Everyone functions at their own level of awareness and no make wrong. So you're observing the other person on the other side of this argument, this breakdown, this upset, whatever it is. You're observing how you're reacting, how you're feeling about it. And then you say in your mind, your one-liner is, everyone is functioning at their own level of awareness.
Right? You're reacting to this person. Yeah. And then no make wrong brings it back down because you're like, okay, I got no make wrong for that and no make wrong for me. That's the whole week, first week. Everyone functions, no make wrong to yourself and everyone else. I practice that. Practice that every day of your life and see how your life will change. And I want to say this, I believe this program is beautiful for people with trauma because, look, we are so ready to be out of it.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Ready. And if you're willing, look, you don't have to do anything right. You just need to be willing and willing to let go of any thoughts around this program. Whatever you hear, if you hear something that speaks to you, let it speak to you. Your mind that says BS, whatever it's saying about whatever you're hearing that's negative, that's a saboteur. Stop listening to it.
Yeah, what you listen to are your senses.
Yeah.
You listen to your body, not just your mind that always is negative or is always in the state of, making yourself wrong or making other people wrong or anything that might improve your life. Got to be just a bunch of, hot air, whatever those things are in your mind that are, what if you sense with your whole body?
Yeah.
Like, oh, you know what? That would make a difference in my life if I could, in the moment of getting upset or having an upset, if I could just go, okay, I'm going to breathe a little bit and observe how I'm feeling. And I'm going to look at the other person and go, everyone functions from their own level of awareness. Yeah, if you can do that in the middle of all of this whatever chaos in your head going on and instead do that, then you start to sense that there's another person on the other side over there. And there's something there to just go, I don't need to make them wrong and I don't need to make myself wrong. Why don't we just find what the common ground solution, whatever, it would just, oh gosh, it changes the world. It
Oh,
changes your
honey,
world.
honey, when you start doing that, what happens is you become compassionate. Why? Because you have to become compassionate for yourself. As you pay attention to the unobserved mind, you become compassionate for whatever other people have to move through because you personally have moved through hell out of hell. When you find your freedom. So let me ask you this. So in our program, you start at 100% reactive, period, because it's a new program. You've never done it before, 100% reactive. And your peace level is 0, not because you don't have peace. Now, that's a mind thing. It's simply where you're at 0 because peace, even if you've had some, we've never really looked at it or anything else. So now we're going to say we're at 0 peace and 100% react. So you started out that way. Where would you say your baselines are for your reactiveness and your peace now?
I would, really, that's it's interesting because I see things so much. I just notice all the time. I live in a pretty stressful kind of environment. My mom has dementia. I have a lot of various things on my plate. There's plenty of things to react to, and I can say that after going through the program, I find myself. I can go, oh, there's the reactiveness going on. Here's how to breathe. And I've used techniques like this before, but it's different, like maybe 50% of the time as opposed to what was 100%, which is not 100% because it depends on where we're at in our life. But as for this example, like if you started at 100% and 0, peace is up at least 50% and reactiveness is down 50%. Let's just say it's kind of like that because I feel a lot more balanced in being able to notice and being able to get myself either out of that upset or just to go, it doesn't matter. Just breathe through this and let it be. It's going to be what it is, you know?
Do you know what's beautiful about that is not only have you provided 50% more peace to yourself and 50% less reactiveness, you will continue to disappear the reactiveness more
Yeah.
and more and more. And it will be done not because you have to do it, simply because you're continuing to practice, just noticing. Because it is not that big of a deal. Once we step out of the thinking mind, it becomes your way of life. It's your way of life now, and it'll always be part of your life. You'll never need me again.
Yeah, and part of that, that 50% improvement, and as it continues to improve, as I notice, is just that, I'm noticing more through my heart instead of through my head. I'm noticing things that are transformational within my spirit or my health, my sort of that well-being feeling of, oh, that feels good, that's yummy. That's what I need to, what I want to and need to and want to heal my insides. So all of that transformation that I experience and have, in other things. That's why all of these pieces on my own journey have been so important. It's simple. Like you said, it's not easy because we have toxic thoughts, and observing our toxic thoughts, we start to realize how often we are reactive to the people we love most. How often we are reactive to, can my mom help that she has dementia? No, but how many times I have caught myself in that reactiveness because it's hard. It's hard to repeat yourself. It's hard to watch a person you love disappear. It's hard. But it's easy and simple once you realize that the simple part is to notice the reactiveness and then to just dismiss it, dismiss the toxic, to dismiss the reactive thought and to let those things disappear, until you have more of the infinite love that you talk about, until that infinite love inside of human beings who would not harm other human beings if this could rise within us, is that it's grounded in that kind of infinite love that I believe too. I believe that love really is the spark of who we are at our core. But oftentimes it has not been said or fueled or realized or listened to because the reactiveness and being right and making everybody else wrong or being in a fight has become the way. And that I don't want to be the way for me, and this has helped me a lot. I've definitely been noticing, and it does. When you notice, you can definitely.
When you know better, you do better. That's for
Yeah,
sure.
you really can.
Yeah, and yeah,
It's
so
freedom. It's
it
definitely
is.
freedom.
It
It's
is.
way more freedom than to live in a reactive um, space and all the time. And I tend to be very reactive. I can get very, upset or hurt or, there's all kinds of reactive. And yet when I just step back and I just observe those feelings and those senses and the person on the other side, and I really give the grace card, as you talked about and we've talked about, you give somebody the grace of not making up a story like you did for me eventually. Like, why isn't Jan getting back to me? Is she ignoring me? Does she not like me? Did she not have a good experience? All those things. But, it's true. We all are doing what we're doing.
And I picked up the phone on a natural way. So it wasn't obsessive, but it was a natural flow of things, but I noticed it. And that's what's
Right.
important. When you notice that about ourselves, it's about it all everything is about ourselves. It's about our reaction. It's about how we
Yes.
react. And we'll never find peace unless we are willing to observe that. And thank God that Eckhart Tolle, he's like the university course and that stuff. And if you want to walk the walk and you want to do it quicker, uh, join Joan of Heart. We got a class coming up in January. Uh, Sign up for it. It's not perfect. You'll get to practice there because I'm sure that the saboteur will be in the room until the saboteur isn't. But this is a game. I call it a game now that we all are centuries, centuries and centuries. We've been looking at this and talking about it and sharing about it. Heck, in times before Socrates and all those guys, nobody could even join if you weren't a man. You couldn't join if you weren't a teacher. You had to be initiated, and by the time you got initiated, it was time to leave this form.
Yeah. Leave this body form behind. Well, I think that's great because that's a great place to maybe to even end the episode or our conversation today, because I think people really do want to move from their heads into a more heart. I believe there's more talk of that, or at least people are interested in, can I get out of this, thing that continually kind of breaks me and other people down and move from my head to my heart, which can build me and other people up, which is the place where I think at least a lot of the people that I work with, they're all interested in that. And most people listening, they want to live in a space with more peace in their present life. They want to live with their more authentic self. They want to be free of the trauma that they've experienced. And again, this is a process. Our healing process is lifelong, but this is one of those big like ahas that I think can really help people to be able to live and be their authentic selves. And so part of having this conversation was that I wanted to pay it forward, you know, by talking about Joan of Heart and what I experienced, and having Nikki, having been through so much and what she has done, and how when your sweetheart died, that's when Joan of Heart was born. And that inside of grief and inside of pain, there are often things that come out of it that are meant to really help others, So I think that that's what you've done. And I don't know, you had like three major, like breakthroughs. One was the 12-step program and being in that room. One was after, your wife died and you kind of came into this. Is there a third one?
I would say I would say, uh, uh, creating Joan of Heart. It was all
Okay.
created, through listening. I we could go on a whole different direction with this. Maybe another conversation we could have, but,
Yep.
definitely, the Joan of Heart program, the founding of it and how it all came to be was, you know, uh it's like a download, like, I just n all these things
Like
come through.
everything just came.
Yeah, it just comes, and I don't wanna get people caught up in any kind of spiritual aspect of it. It's we don't even have to talk about it as a spiritual aspect, you can talk about it in the quantum physics sense.
Yeah.
We're stepping out of an old paradigm, it's a Newtonian paradigm into the conscious, the connected paradigm.
And I would call it a mentorship kind of a program
It
that
is a
came
mentor,
to
yeah.
that and that's what we do, like, on Thrivivors. It is peer-to-peer support and mentoring that really helps us move forward, because when we understand that we have common ground and experiences, which we do with most human beings, but especially within that survivor community, you actually kind of want to trust a process that worked for someone else, you know? Yeah.
And I do have so in that process in trusting love, I hit a wall because I could only do so much anymore. And so I had a conversation with love and I said, okay, so if you want this to keep going, then I need you to bring people to me. I need this, because I can only do so much with my education, everything. I need other people's support. And I'll be darned if that didn't show up. So one of the other things that I am doing is a one-woman show, and that is gonna tie everything together. It's Joan of Heart, the program, Joan of Heart, the podcast, what it's used for. The person in my life is well aware of how to do all these things, so we're moving Joan of Heart to a next level now, and it'll probably look different, sound different. And, you won't have to practice too much.
I think if we practice focusing on our heart-centered, our gut-centered just feelings and observing those things rather than our thoughts, and we try, just to even consider living life moment by moment, it's not so far out. I know with other, that's very much a 12-step thought as well in the program, and how if you go too far down the road, it just looks overwhelming. But if you can just do this moment by moment thing, it's a lot of freedom and it's a lot less upset in your life all the time. I found that to be very, very helpful, because I'm a big picture visionary thinker, and I can see, like, I want to end all abuse on the planet, and this is how we're going to do it, and I have these huge, but what I've realized is that you can have visions that start movements and that start conversations, and that is your your piece of the puzzle. That is just that piece. You don't have to see the final piece put in to the puzzle. You've seen the picture, and now everybody's adding their piece to this puzzle, and you were the one that got to have that vision that things are possible. And so you don't need to be so hard on yourself that until it's accomplished, I haven't accomplished anything, because sometimes I can be that way to myself. I want it to be done. I want there to be no abuse on the planet. And then I'll feel like I accomplished something. And now I've realized, oh, I don't have to do that. I can be okay with just having a vision and starting something. And that's my piece of the puzzle. And to keep having guests on a podcast that can add to that conversation. And you did that today for me. Thank you, Nikki.